Sign the damn paper. Or get out. And my brother Jed's voice was shaking with a rage so deep it barely sounded human. We were standing in our father's office. The lawyer had left less than 60 seconds ago. The smell of cheap funeral coffee and my mother's old perfume still hung in the air. He threw a quitclaim deed onto the desk. The same desk our father used to sign his cattle loans. On top of it, Jed slapped a single, crumpled check from his own personal bank account. What is this? I whispered. My throat tight. The black dress I'd worn to the burial felt like it was suffocating me. That, Jed spat, jabbing a calloused finger at the check, is $10,000. It's the price for your education. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. You have 60 seconds to sign your share of this farm over to me and Caleb, or I will personally throw your bags onto the highway. My father had been in the ground for less than 3 hours, and my brothers had just declared war. I was never meant to be a farmer, while my brothers, Jed and Caleb, seemed to be born with Texas dust under their fingernails. I was born with a book in my hands. They were a decade older than me, already working the fields like men when I was learning to read. To them, I was a mistake, a fragile, city girl dropped onto a 900-acre cotton farm. My father, David Hayes, was a hard man, but he saw something in me. While my brothers learned to drive the tractor, he taught me to balance the checkbooks. He was the one who encouraged me to apply for scholarships. Don't you ever let them tell you thinking ain't work. Evie, he'd told me, his rough hand on my shoulder. It's the hardest work there is. You go use that brain of yours. This dirt, it ain't going nowhere. My brothers saw it as the ultimate betrayal. To them, my full-ride scholarship to Berkeley wasn't an achievement. It was an escape. It was me thinking I was better than them. Go on. Jed had sneered the day I left. Go get your fancy piece of paper. Don't come crying back here when the real world finds out you're useless. So I didn't. I left. And I built a life. I didn't just get a degree. I got a Ph.D. in agricultural biotechnology. I worked in state-of-the-art labs in California. My entire life became dedicated to solving one problem: drought. While my brothers were spending my father's money drilling deeper wells and praying for rain, I was engineering plants that didn't need it. My private obsession, the project my corporate bosses thought was too radical, was a cotton strain I called Project Rusilica. I had used gene editing to splice the DNA of a desert succulent into a Pima cotton seed. The result, in theory, was a miracle. A plant that used 80% less water and could survive, even thrive, in soil most farmers considered poisoned. It was my life's work, my secret. Then the call came. It wasn't a call about the farm. It was about Dad. A tractor rollover. He was stubborn. He was out there, in the 100-degree heat, trying to fix a piece of irrigation equipment by himself. By the time I flew from San Francisco to Lubbock, it was too late. I got to hold his hand. I feel the calluses I'd never have, and watch him slip away. The land, he whispered to me, his eyes unfocused. It's so thirsty. Evie. I know. Dad, I know. I cried. Don't let them break you. He breathed. Your brothers. They're good boys, but they're stuck in my ways. The farm, it needs new. He was gone. The funeral was a blur of black suits, the suffocating scent of dust, and the hollow, awkward silence of my brothers, who hadn't hugged me. The next morning, we were in the lawyer's office. Mr. Patterson, a man I'd known my whole life, looked nervous. It's real simple. David's will, he said. adjusting his glasses. He left the farm. Hayes Family Farms LLC. And all associated debts. He paused, and I saw Jed crack his knuckles. To be divided equally. In 3 parts. Between his children, Jedidiah Hayes, Caleb Hayes, and Dr. Evelyn Hayes. The silence was deafening. Jed's face went from pale to a deep, dangerous purple. Caleb just stared at his boots. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I wasn't just his daughter. I was, officially, their partner. Mr. Patterson must have felt the tension. He gathered his papers quickly. "Well," he said, standing up, "if you'll excuse me, I'll leave you 3 to discuss. Operations." He practically ran out of the room. The second the door clicked shut, Jed stood up. He walked over to our father's desk, sat down in our father's chair, and looked at me. And that's when it happened. That's when he told me to sign the paper. Or get out. I didn't sign the paper. I just looked at Jed, at the $10,000 check. And I said 2 words. "No, thank you." Jed's face went blank. I don't think he had ever, in his entire life, considered the possibility that I would defy him. "What did you say?" I said no. I repeated, my voice shaking, but my resolve hardening. "I own 1/3 of this farm. I'm not selling it, especially not for $10,000. Caleb finally looked up, his eyes wide with panic. "Jed, the bank?" "Shut up." Jed roared. He stood up so fast his chair screeched on the hardwood floor. "Fine." He spat at me. "You want your 1/3. You want to be a farmer. You got it." He grabbed my arm, hard, and dragged me out of the house. He threw me toward the old farm truck. "Get in." He drove. Not to the main fields. Not to the acres of struggling cotton or the fallow sorghum fields. He drove past the barns, past the main irrigation lines, all the way to the far southwest corner of the property. He slammed on the brakes, and the truck skidded to a stop in a cloud of white, choking dust. He pointed out the window. "This," he said, his voice filled with venom, "is yours." I looked. It was 40 acres of wasteland. It was the dead zone. Every farm has a plot of land that is useless. This was ours. The soil was a pale, sickly gray, poisoned with alkaline salt. Nothing grew there. Not even vates. "It's 40 acres. Jed said. "Exactly your share of the workable land. The water line stops 2 miles back. Nothing grows here. Nothing ever will grow here." He looked at me, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "So, go ahead, doctor," he said, mocking my title. "Go, farm, do your science." He spun the truck around and left me there. I stood alone in the howling wind, surrounded by white, cracked, poisoned earth. He thought it was a punishment. He thought he had exiled me, given me a pile of worthless dirt to break my spirit. He didn't realize he had just given me the perfect, isolated, contained laboratory. I walked back to the house, ignored the glares from my brothers, went into my old bedroom, and made a phone call. "Hi. Ben. It's Evelyn." I said to my lab assistant in California, "I'm resigning. Effective immediately." There was a silence. "Dr. Hayes, is everything okay?" "I'm fine." "Ben, I need you to do one last thing for me. Project Resilica. All the Generation 1 seeds. I need you to overnight them to me. In Texas. The next 2 weeks." The farm changed. I liquidated my 401k. I sold my condo in Oakland. I drained my entire life's savings. Every penny over $150,000 was sunk into my new project. The first thing that arrived was a massive drilling truck. "What in God's name is that?" Caleb asked, walking over to my plot, his arms crossed. "It's a well digger," I said, measuring soil samples. "There's no water out here. Evie, the aquifer is 1,000 feet down." "I know," I said. "I'm not drilling for the aquifer. I'm drilling for the brine." He stared at me. The old-timers knew, but my brothers had forgotten. The reason the dead zone was dead was because a pocket of ancient, salty brine water was trapped just 200 feet below the surface, slowly poisoning the topsoil. The drilling truck hit it in 3 hours. Salty, unusable water gushed out. Jed drove by and laughed. "Congratulations. Genius. You spent 10 grand to hit poison water. You gonna sell salt?" He didn't stick around to see the next truck arrive. It was a portable, solar-powered desalination unit, the kind used by NGOs in disaster zones. It cost me $40,000. By the end of the week, I had what no one else in the county had: a private, drought-proof, off-grid water source. The town was buzzing. I became the local joke. Fama Bobby, the mad scientist. I heard it every time I went to the Lone Star Feed and Seed. "What's all this for?" "Dr. Hayes, old Mr. Henderson, the owner," I would ask, as I bought bags of potassium nitrate and monopotassium phosphate. "She's building a science fair project," Hank Jed would call out from the aisle, making the other farmers chuckle. "Gonna make it rain cupcake-scented water. Ain'tcha, Evie?" My face would burn, but I just paid for my chemicals and left. I built a small, makeshift greenhouse. I wasn't farming. I was iterating. My box of Rassilica seeds arrived. There were only 100 of them. 100 chances. I germinated them in the storm cellar, under the dilapidated barn on my plot, using UV lights and my precious desalinated water. My first batch, planted directly in the alkaline soil, died. Jed was right. The salt was too high. The second batch, germinated and transplanted, withered under the 110-degree Texas sun. I was failing. My money was running out. My credit card was declined for a $20 bag of fertilizer. And then, my brothers got lucky. A freak storm cell in early May dumped 2 inches of rain on the northern half of the county. It missed my plot completely, but it soaked their main fields. They had borrowed another $100,000 from the bank against my official protest as a 1/3 owner and planted 200 acres of traditional Pima cotton. Their fields sprouted, overnight, a sea of green. They were jubilant. They celebrated at the local bar, buying rounds for everyone. Jed drove past my plot, drunk in the passenger seat of Caleb's truck. "How's your science experiment?" "Evie," he bellowed, laughing. "You see this? This is how real men farm. You shoulda took the 10,000. I sat on the porch of the old barn, my head in my hands, my bank account almost empty, and I cried. Then I got back to work. It wasn't just the soil. It was the shock. I went back to the feed store with my last few $100s. I didn't buy chemicals. I bought 10 50-pound bags of bentonite clay. That's for lining cattle ponds. "Dr. Hayes," Mr. Henderson said, raising an eyebrow. "I know," I said. I mixed the clay with the nutrient slurry, creating small, hardened clay pots directly in the ground. I transplanted my last 30 seedlings into these pots. The clay would hold the fresh water and nutrients right at the root, shielding the young plant from the alkaline poison, just long enough for its main taproot to drill down. It was a crazy, back-breaking. Disperate gamble. And then, the rain stopped. For good. The 2 inches they got in May, that was it. June came. 110 degrees. July, 115. The local news anchors stopped calling it a dry spell and started using words like catastrophic, the Dust Bowl returns, historic drought. The Ogallala Aquifer, the massive underground lake that fed the entire Texas Panhandle, was at its lowest level in recorded history. The county implemented water rationing. You could water your lawn on Tuesdays. Farms were cut off. My brother's fields, the ones that had sprouted, so hopefully, turned brown, then yellow, then gray. The plants were skeletal. The leaves crumbled to dust at a touch. They were ruined. The $100,000 loan was gone. Burned up by the sun. They grew quiet. The drive-by taunts stopped. One night, I woke up to a strange sound. Silence. My desalination unit, my only source of water, had stopped working. I ran out in my pajamas. It wasn't a mechanical failure. The main valve, from the solar-powered well to the unit, had been shut off. I looked back toward the main house. I saw a silhouette. It was Jed. He was just standing there, watching me in the moonlight. He had sabotaged me. He was going to let my last 30 plants die, just to prove he was right. I felt a cold fury I had never known. I walked past him, back to the house, grabbed the keys to the farm truck, my truck. I owned 1/3 of it and drove into town. I used the last $5,000 in my checking account to call an emergency water delivery service. At 4 a.m., a massive water truck rumbled down the highway and filled 3 25,000-gallon tanks I had ordered on credit. It was the rest of my money. All of it. Jed watched me. His face a mask of disbelief. I had called his bluff. By the time the sun came up, my plants had been watered, and my brother's fields were dead. All you could hear at Hayes Farm was the wind, whistling through the dead stalks of their failed crop. And in the dead zone, my 30 plants had survived. Their roots had burrowed past the alkaline clay, deep into the subsoil. They were small, but they were alive. And they were green. By August, West Texas looked like the surface of Mars. The air was thick with a permanent, gritty haze of dust. The bank had stopped calling my brothers. They just sent a certified letter, taped to our front door. Notice of foreclosure auction. The auction was set for September 1st. 10 am. The farm, the house, the barns, the tractors. On my father's legacy, all of it was going to be sold on the courthouse steps. They were going to lose it all. Jed didn't drink on the porch anymore. He just sat there, silent, staring at the horizon. Caleb spent his days in town, avoiding the house, avoiding Jed, avoiding me. They had failed. Their way had failed. I stayed in the dead zone. My 30 plants had not only survived, they were thriving. The Rusilica gene was a miracle. They had gone into a low-power hibernation during the worst of the heat. And now, as the nights cooled, they were flourishing. They were covered in thick, heavy, brilliant white bowls of cotton. I harvested them all by hand. It took me 2 days. I rented a small, ancient cotton gin in the next county over, paying the owner in cash to let me use it for one night. By myself. I ginned the cotton, separating the precious fiber from the seeds. At the end of it, I was left with 2 things. A small, 40-pound bale of the most beautiful, impossibly long staple cotton I had ever seen, and a 5-gallon bucket, filled to the brim with Rusilica Generation 2 seeds. The seeds were the real harvest. September 1st, auction day. The foreclosure was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 9 a.m., two black, immaculate SUVs, the kind that look alien in West Texas, rolled down our dusty farm road. Jed, who was sitting on the porch in a dirty t-shirt, stood up, his face pale. He thought it was the bank. Coming early. It wasn't the bank. A man and a woman, both in crisp, dark blue suits, stepped out. They looked impossibly cool in the 100-degree heat. "Can I help you?" I asked, walking over from my plot, wiping grease from my hands. "Are you Dr. Evelyn Hayes?" the woman asked. Her voice was sharp, professional. "I am." She handed me a card. Sarah Davenport, Head of Acquisitions, AgriCorp Global. My heart hammered against my ribs. AgriCorp. They weren't just a company. They were the company. The Monsanto of Monsantos. How do you know my name?" "We've been monitoring this entire region via satellite," the man said. His voice flat. "Thermal imaging. Moisture level analysis. We're looking for anomalies." He pulled out a tablet. He showed me a satellite map of the entire county. It was a sea of red and orange. Scorched earth. Except for one. Tiny. Fartiakredut. A single patch of vibrant, impossible green. My dead zone. "This is your plot. Is it not, Ms. Davenport asked. "It is," I said. Jed had wandered over, his face a mask of confusion. "What is this? What's going on?" "Evie. We're here. Mr. Hayes." "Ms. Davenport said, not taking her eyes off me. "Because your sister has apparently done the impossible. She has grown a successful crop in alkaline-positive soil during the worst drought in a century. We're here to buy it." Jed actually laughed. A dry, bitter, broken sound. Buy what he sneered. 30 ridiculous-looking plants. She's got maybe 40 pounds of cotton. That won't even buy you a tank of gas. "We are not here for the cotton," the man said, looking at Jed like he was an insect. "Ms. Davenport looked at me. "Dr. Hayes, we know who you are. We've followed your research for years. We knew Resilica was your private project. We assumed it failed when you resigned." "It didn't," I said. "Clearly," she said, allowing herself a small, thin smile. "We want the patent, and we want the seeds." I glanced at the 5-gallon bucket sitting by my cellar door, gleaming in the morning sun. "What are you offering?" I asked, my voice suddenly steady. Jed scoffed. "Evie, don't be stupid. Take whatever they offer. $50, $100. Ms. Davenport ignored him. She looked directly at me. "We are authorized, Dr. Hayes, to offer you a signing bonus of $20 million. The wind stopped. The birds stopped. The entire world just stopped. Jed's jaw fell open. I heard a small, strangled gasp and realized Caleb had come outside to see what the commotion was. "And," Ms. Davenport continued, as if she were ordering coffee, "a 4% royalty on all global seed sales derived from the Resilica patent." My Ph.D. brain, the one my brothers hated, did the math in a microsecond. A 4% royalty on the global cotton market. It wasn't millions. It was billions. "Evie," Caleb whispered, taking a step toward me. His face was ashen. "Evie." "What? What did you do?" She's lying," Jed stammered, his eyes wild. 20 million for seeds. That's not real. It can't be. It's very real. "Mr. Hayes," the man said, opening his briefcase. "We have the contract right here. And the wire transfer confirmation." "Ms. Davenport looked at me. "We're in the business of knowing things." "Dr. Hayes, we also know the West Texas First National Bank is auctioning this property in 48 minutes. It was the ultimate power play. They had me. And they knew it. "I have one condition," I said. "Ms." Davenport's eyebrow went up. "My brothers," I said, looking Jed and Caleb dead in the eye. "I wanted in the contract that AgriCorp's R&D division, which I will be running, gets a permanent 50-year lease on these 900 acres, and that the lease agreement supersedes any and all other Bratian private partnerships." A look of pure understanding passed over Ms. Senya, Davenport's face. "You want to protect the farm from them," she said, "while employing them on it. Clever. Done." "Evie, you can't," Jed growled, finally understanding. "This is our farm." "It was," I said, taking the expensive-feeling pen from Ms. Lash. "Davenport." I looked at the $10,000 check he had thrown at me, which was still on my father's desk inside. And then I looked at the $20 million contract in my hand. "You said my education was worthless," I said to him, my voice clear and cold. "This is a $20 million contract. Jed, it's a little more than your $10,000 offer. Don't you think?" I signed my name. "And this," I said, pressing the pen into the paper, "is the new Hayes name." Right on cue. The bank manager's car rolled up the drive, the auctioneer sitting in the passenger seat. They were 1 hour too late. The bank manager, Mr. Peterson, got out of his car, adjusting his tie. He looked pale when he saw the AgriCorp Suburbans. He looked even paler when Ms. Davenport handed him her card. "The auction is cancelled, Mr. Peterson," I said, walking up to his car. "Now, Evelyn, you know it's not that simple," he stammered, trying to regain his composure. "The debt is significant. Over $300,000. Plus penalties. I'm not here to negotiate," I said. I pulled my phone from my back pocket. The AgriCorp wire transfer was already pending. I opened my banking app. I typed in the full amount, $312,455. I paid the entire mortgage, plus all associated fees and penalties, in a single transaction. My phone chimed with the confirmation. I held the screen up for him to see. "Hayes Family Farms is now debt-free," I said. "You can go." He just stared at the phone. Then at me. He nodded. Slowly. Got back in his car. And drove away. The auction was over before it began. Ms. Davenport and her team were busy. They were treating the dead zone like a holy site. Taking soil samples. GPS tagging my 30 plants. I walked back to the porch, where my brothers were sitting. Jed was consumed by a silent, white-hot rage. Caleb, however, was crying. He was just sitting on the top step, his head in his hands, making these quiet, broken sounds. I sat down in my father's old rocking chair. For a long time, nobody spoke. The only sound was the hot wind. So that's it. Then, Jed finally spat. His voice thick. "You're the queen now. You gonna kick us out?" I thought about it. I said. Honestly, I thought about letting the bank take it. I thought about buying it myself and turning it into a parking lot. I thought about giving you exactly $10,000 for your shares and telling you to get out. I looked at them, at these two broken, angry men who had tried to destroy me. But Dad's last words to me were, "Don't let them break you," and The farm needs new ideas. He believed in this place. And he believed in me. I didn't know how to tell you. I pulled 2 pieces of paper from my back pocket. They weren't legal documents. They were employment contracts. I'm not kicking you out, I said, placing them on the table. I'm hiring you. Jed looked at the paper like it was a snake. Hire. To us. To do what? You're the best farmer in this county. Jed, you know this land better than anyone. AgriCorp doesn't want to just sell Rasilica. They want to test Generation 2, 3, and 4. They need a working farm, a test site, and I need a head of operations. And me, Caleb asked, his voice cracking. You know every tractor, every harvester, every pump on this property. I need a head of maintenance. These contracts, they're for $60,000 a year, each, with full health benefits. It was more money than they had ever made in their lives. Jed stared at the paper. You'd pay us, after everything. No, I said, standing up. I'm not paying you. AgriCorp is paying you. I'm just the boss. The next day, I took them back to Mr. Ninenis, Patterson, the lawyer. The $20 million from AgriCorp had cleared. I didn't dissolve the Hayes Family Farms LLC. I bought their shares. I am not giving you $10,000, I said, as the lawyer handed them the cashier's checks. I am giving you each $1 million, in cash, for your part of the land. Jed's hands were shaking as he took the check. Caleb just wept. They were now my employees, living in my house, on the land they used to own. It was a lesson in power, not the kind of power that crushes, the kind of power that builds. That was 6 months ago. The dead zone is gone. In its place stands the Hayes Institute for Arid Agriculture, a massive, multi-million-dollar complex of gleaming white labs and greenhouses, fully funded by AgriCorp. We're not just planting cotton. We're testing Rasilica sorghum, Rasilica corn, Rasilica soybeans. The farm is an oasis of green in the middle of a still struggling landscape. Jed took the job. He's still a grouch. He's still stubborn. But the rage is gone. It's been replaced by a grudging, baffled respect. He's too proud to say he's sorry. But last week, he built a new, reinforced steel frame for my personal greenhouse, without me asking. Caleb is my shadow. He is fascinated by the Rasilica project. He's learning to read the genetic data, to monitor the nutrient inputs. He's found a new kind of work, one that uses his hands and his mind. Today, the first major storm of the season is rolling in. You can smell the rain in the air. That sharp, electric, earthy scent. That means life. I'm standing on the porch of the old farmhouse. It's been renovated. But the bones are the same. My brothers looked at our inheritance and saw a tradition to be defended, a past to be repeated until it failed. They saw me as a threat to that. I looked at the same dry, cracked land, and I saw a blank canvas, an opportunity. They tried to bury me. They mocked me. They sabotaged me. And they exiled me to the dead zone, the one place on earth where they were sure nothing could ever grow. They forgot the most important thing about agriculture. They forgot that a seed has to be buried in the dark, under pressure, before it can finally grow. The sky opened up, and the rain finally came, washing the dust off the new green fields. I didn't even go inside. I just stood there, and I let it soak me to the bone.